Welcome back to Conversations. As promised, Sophie Pouteau is with us today. I like to call Sophie the tutor doctor because that's really where she works, the tutor doctor. We talked a week ago with Cliff McDonald. You are familiar with Cliff McDonald.
Yes, I know Cliff.
Getting people through the college process, what an ordeal. But what we really gathered from Cliff is that there's a whole lot of stuff that could be done in the years prior to this frenzied time of year when you're applying for college right now that would make this time easier. And
Absolutely.
That's where you come
Absolutely.
in.
One of the things we like to do is to enhance the students' learning by providing tutoring. The colleges are requiring the students these days to have better than average test scores and better than average grades. And a lot of times the schools aren't providing the resources for these students. Therefore, tutor doctor comes in and we provide the one-on-one tutoring for them.
How do you know, oh sorry, Sean, how do you know when your child is in need of a tutor versus just not applying themselves? Because, you know, having raised a couple myself, I really could see, well, you answer that question.
Well, there's two things. One, for the older students, obviously, you can just ask them and they know. They typically will come to you. Like my daughter came to me one day and she said, "Mommy, I need a math tutor."
They will admit to it?
Absolutely,
Struggling.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to fall behind. They really don't want to fall behind. But when you can identify as a parent where your child is struggling, typically we'll see that early on in life, even in second and third grades, where their reading is not up to par. Mm-hmm. And it's important for them to be able to read because reading and math are all a function of literacy. Understanding the language in order to transcribe mathematical equations is essential.
And traditional philosophy, when a parent notices that happening, would have been in the past, let's hold the kid back a year or two.
Correct.
Would that be something you advise, or?
It depends on a lot of things. It really depends on the age of the student, it depends on how they're doing in school, it also depends on the expectations of the parents.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I found too that I tried to be the tutor, and I'm sure many parents do this. You know, you think, well, I can figure out 5th grade math. Apparently not. But no, and it really does a number on your relationship with your child.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's very stressful. I have that situation with my children as well, where I, being a former teacher myself, think that I can teach my own kids, but it gets very frustrating. And it does take a toll on your relationship. So I always recommend a third party. It's a lot easier. The kids have a tendency to listen to the third party even better. Yeah. They're acting. They don't act out, and they get the job done. They get the work done, which is key.
Well, when parents try and do the teaching, it blurs the line, you know, somewhat between parent and educator and disciplinarian and all that good stuff. So, you know, it sounds like it makes perfect sense to let the professionals do the job.
Absolutely. And
get it done. That way it won't jeopardize and affect your relationship with your child as well.
Absolutely.
You know?
How important is the relationship between the tutor and the student for them to be successful? Tell us about that.
Absolutely, extremely important. One of the things that I like to do is when I meet with the families, I really do an assessment of the personality, learning style, and interest of the student. And I do the same thing with my tutors when I hire them. And if you don't have that good match, if you don't have that good click, the kids don't assimilate with the tutor, and therefore the tutor can't get anywhere with that student. Well, when you make that really good match, and you can see how the students are actually, they're being encouraged, they're just part of the whole learning process. They feel really good about themselves. They love their tutors. Absolutely, the relationship is so important.
So you go through a bit of a process in matching up tutor with student and making sure that they get along. And if they don't get along, it's very, for the parents at home to know and the children at home to know, it's very important for them to speak up and say, you know what, I didn't like that tutor. Doesn't necessarily mean the tutoring didn't work for the child at all. So let's find them another tutor. And I'm sure you go through that process and it helps out.
Absolutely, yes. There are times when the tutor doesn't match with maybe the parent, and the parent wants to change a tutor, even if the tutor works well with the student. That has happened. But it does happen on occasion where something just doesn't click, and little Johnny isn't, you know, meshing with Joseph, you know, the tutor, and so we do the change.
It'd be hard to be successful if that happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on both sides, we have to set them up for success. I have to set my tutors up for success, as well as my my families.
And as the tutor doctors, you guys make house calls,
We
don't
do.
you? That's
Yes, we
cool.
do.
Tell us about that.
Well, we do one-on-one in-home private tutoring.
So you come to them.
Yes, I come to the family, I do the assessment, and then I match them with a tutor in the area. So we try to stay as local as possible, bringing the communities together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That way the tutor would actually know if they're born and raised in the area, or they at least live in the area. They know maybe some of the societal influences that the student is going through, and they can help relate a little bit.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
And don't you think the stigma has changed a little bit? Because your daughter felt comfortable enough coming to you, and maybe it's because you're in the industry, but she felt comfortable enough coming to you, knowing she wouldn't be in trouble for not getting, higher than a C or something like that. She said, I need help. Are kids a little bit more able to go to their parents now without worry about failure? Because I know in my generation that you would not ask for help. That was a sign of weakness, and yet really it's the only thing that's going to get you ahead here if you
Well, and
need
your
it.
daughter Chelsea, she used a tutor growing up.
Oh
right?
yeah, and my son did too. Both of
Right.
them quite smart, but just really recognizing, are you trying your hardest? Or, and to find out, oh no, this is a real struggle. There was zero stigma, but I think that's kind of new.
I think the stigma, and I'm trying to reduce that negative stigmatism that tutoring has. Absolutely, today, the education system is so competitive. Getting into those colleges, like Cliff discussed with you, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
You need to get those grades, and like I said, the schools are lacking resources, and so having that tutor is not just helping the student to increase their grades and their self-esteem and their confidence, but it's also giving them the foundation and also having a mentorship with that person. They're able to call their tutor on a night or something, I got into a fight with my mom, I want to talk to you, or something like that.
Oh,
That does
so
happen.
really having another adult.
Absolutely.
A bit of counseling goes into
Absolutely.
it as well.
Sometimes it does,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
and sometimes that's what gets in the way of your success in school. When you're a teenager, especially, I mean,
So
a
much
bad
going
day can really just get right in the
It can
way.
ruin your week, it can ruin your
It
month,
can
it can ruin your school year.
grades. Yeah, it can really go bad. In talking with Cliff, we really got the idea that, the competitiveness of getting into college. So part of that is the SAT scores and all of that. I noticed the people that had money were sending their children through SAT training courses because there's a strategy involved, not
Absolutely.
just about knowing the answers, but knowing when not to answer something. Do the tutor doctors do this?
Yes, we have tutors that specialize in test prep, SAT, ACT, and other specialty tests. And yes, they do cater to the test itself. So you have plenty of strategies that you can learn. And also we also address nutrition. We also address sleep. We address, a variety of different preparations in order to succeed on the exam.
Interesting, because feeding the brain, that's...
Got to feed the brain. A lot of people don't realize that nutrition is so important in education. We have, I see it in a lot of the diets at school. They're just high in carbohydrates and
All the
low in
sodas and
protein
stuff,
and lots of sugar. And when you are preparing for an exam, think about this. You're sitting there for 4 hours.
Yes.
You can't be hungry. If you start feeling those hunger pangs, your brain is not going to be functioning very well. Then you lose focus. Then you can't think about how to answer the exam anymore.
Well, we were just talking about this in our last segment. We had a memory expert on, and she was saying about nutrition and that it really can affect your memory. And of course, lack of sleep can affect your memory. So many of these tests, it's about memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for kids too. I mean, nowadays, soda pop and energy drinks and everything else that you literally peak and then crash. And like you said, if you're
Yes,
taking an SAT,
exactly.
it's 4 hours, 6 hours long, whatever it is nowadays. You need energy throughout that whole thing. You don't need the highs and the lows. So it's good that you guys are addressing all the different factors that can go into, how the mind works and what gives you the best competitive edge.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about tutoring. It's just, it's not just for those who fall behind anymore. It's
Nope.
about a competitive edge
Yes.
because there are those out there who, look, they're born geniuses and the majority of us aren't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have
we
need all the help.
students. I have many students. As a matter of fact, I've got a few young students who are excelling in school, and the parents are looking at them, and the kids are bored in school. They really are. Well, they called me, and I, with my tutor, incorporated a project-based learning program for them, where it's completely separate from school, but what they're doing is applying everything that they're learning in school, all the basics, to projects.
And turning it into building synapses in the brain. Real quickly, so the parent that says, I just can't afford tutoring, what's the cost ratio to effectiveness? I mean, if your kid's falling behind and you say, and I can't afford it,
can you really put a price on that? I mean,
you can't really put a price on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pricing varies, and it really depends on the student's commitment as well.
Right.
In order to, because if the student is not committed, you're not going to get any results.
And do you guys have flexible payment plans, things of that nature, to make it more reasonable for the actual students?
Absolutely. We do packages, and we do a variety of different open enrollments, so there are a variety of opportunities.
And I think it comes down to, you almost can't not afford sometimes to give your kid the edge, because it will come back later when they, if they can't keep up, then they can't go to college, and then so later on that whatever the weekly tutoring cost was is probably completely.
Yeah, a little bit now will pay off big dividends in the future. So we've got some information to give out.
Let's give out the website. This is Sophie Pouteau. She's the owner of Tutor Doctor, and they're serving the Tri-Valley region. They make house calls. I love that. Check out their website, www.tutoringinthebayarea.com. If you think your child needs a little help, there is nothing wrong with that, and that's really great. Or if they're such a genius and they need more stimulation, that's great too. Thanks so much, Sophie. Great to have you here today. And that'll do it for this edition of Conversations. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
If you liked our show, please check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/tv30.org and click the like button.
And let's do this again next week. Until then, he's Sean.
And she's Robin. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye. If you'd like to order a copy of this show, please visit our website at trivalleytv.org.